Hello and welcome to this recording by the Choral Guy. This is intending to show you how I teach responses to unseen poetry. Now, rather disingenuously, I have a poem here that I have seen before, of course. This used to be on the AQA syllabus, and it's The Song of the Old Mother by W.B. Yeats. I'm going to show you how I respond to this in 3 parts. I'm going to have a length of time to respond to this, probably about 20 minutes. And I'm going to record this 20 minutes and then push it up and then to see where that goes. So to start off with, I put 20 minutes as a timer here on the side. I'll just drag this over and show it to you. In fact, actually, maybe I can drag that over to here. There we go. And so time starts now. We can see it pointing up there in that top corner. So, I rise in the dawn, and I kneel and blow, till the seed of the fire flicker and glow. Seed is an interesting word choice there. And then I must scrub and bake and sweep, till the stars are beginning to blink and peep, and the young lie long and dream in their bed, of the matching of ribbons for bosom and head. And their days go over in idleness, connection there, and they sigh if the wind lift but a tress. While I must work because I am old, and the seed of the fire gets feeble and cold. Okay, so first things first, there's a writer acronym to which you respond. I think this is good for some initial responses. So what is it about? It appears to be about an old woman, little power, complaining about young and the rigours of life. The structure of the poem. Okay, we can see rhyming couplets. Is there rhyme within the middle? I rise in the dawn, and I kneel and blow till the seed of the fire flicker and glow. 5B1, and then I must scrub and bake and sweep till the stars are beginning to blink and peep, and the young light no and dream in the bed. Okay, so it seems to be 10 syllables throughout as well. So regular rhyme and regular rhythm. Although of course there is some caesura within that as well to break up what's happening. Imagery, the idea of the seed, lifting a tress. Here are the techniques. There's some alliteration as well. And the idea of the I and the imagery in the T, see what kind of techniques we can see. These monosyllabic kneel, blow, flicker, glow, scrub, bake, sweep, these monosyllabic verbs. And there's almost a technique of onomatopoeia here. It's almost onomatopoeic. Okay. Some iteration there. And there's some interesting punctuation to connect ideas. Punctuation to connect. You may see these being described as advanced punctuation with colon, semicolon, so on and so forth, but I really like to think it as the full range of punctuation. E is the effect, so the tone. So it's weary, undermined, resigned. Okay. And response, attacking young people, perhaps. Now, the issue I think is, and before I move on, I need to say that the response is ideally more than one. And of course, the effect and the idea of expectations, and the attacking of young people will be connected. This would all be connected together. So, the way I would see an unseen poetry response is to have initially the global idea as indicated by a productive language technique. And by productive language technique, I mean you physically need to have a quotation that you can analyze for connotation or for traditional language techniques like metaphor, imagery, and so forth. That means as opposed to structural techniques like rhyme or rhythm or enjambment or caesura, something like that. Second idea, second paragraph, would show a development or even possibly an intensification of that idea. So does it change, does it progress, does it contrast, or is it more of the same, hopefully being more intensified? And finally, is there resolution or not of that global idea? Okay, and there's 3 sections here, 3 paragraphs going straight in, and with all of this you need to have alternative interpretations, and you need to ensure that you analyze structure and form as well, in the form of expectations. Okay. Alternative ideas would be to have a paragraph of analysis of language, of structure, and of form distinctly, but I think focusing on these ideas and integrating the technique analysis afterwards would be more useful. So, we have 15 minutes now to select our 3 quotations and to respond. So, I think I would have an element of alliteration here, alliteration, imagery, the pronoun beginning it, and the repetition of these verbs, all in the initial idea. Okay, so my opening paragraph, fire flicker, I scrub, bake, sweep. And that's going to form my opening paragraph. And I'm not entirely 100% sure how that's going to happen, but that's my gut instinct. Now for my intensification, okay then, I'm going to choose this interesting one of matching your ribbons. And again, this is an image. And the final productive quotation by which to root my analysis here would be the rhyme of old and cold. Or maybe even again the seed, but old and cold. And the reason why is because there's some rhyme I can link that with, and of course the idea of the word seed will be connecting into this too. So I've got my 3 lines of analysis, and that took me 90 seconds to find all 3. Okay then, so I'm then going to have one last look at the poem, and here we go. So we need to see the question first, of course. The question is no, it's not a question being placed into there. What's the question? How does Yeats present the old woman and her life? Okay. Yeats presents an image of an old lady, both weary and resigned, you can see that we're there, to spending the last moments of her life domestically caring for the young, presumably with an expectation that the opposite would be more ideal. The stark alliteration of the fire flicker, then I use my square brackets to conjugate that, so it becomes a participle, and therefore conjugating with the weave of the rest of that quotation. Notice also I have the adjective before the technique. The stark alliteration of the fire flickering depicts her wizened lack of health and vitality. Yet, and I think fire flickering often has a mystical quality, yet with a somewhat mystical quality, as fire eludes passion and life. The perspective of the old lady is distinctly expressed, prioritized by the poem opening with the pronoun I, while the poem bemoans the lack of action by the young. It is firmly rooted in one perspective only. Is that significant? Then I want to move on to the monosyllabic verbs there. So, in contrast to the musical language in the fire image, the tedious repetition, no, the firm repetition of the monosyllabic verbs, scrub, bake, sweep, amongst others. Effectively, it's a cheat word. Evocatively, again a cheat word. Evocatively underscores the tedium of the domestic responsibilities that the old woman must feel. Now I want to look at some reader analysis here. Okay. Whilst a younger reader might see this as an attack on the young, those with attack on the idleness of the young, those with responsibility might see this, might be more likely to see this as a defense of the rights of the old to a retirement of leisure. And we can maybe develop that idea later on with the notion that the old need to have some relaxation. So that's your first paragraph. This desire for leisure in the old, this idea, this notion of desiring leisure in the old is intensified, depicted, highlighted, is perhaps highlighted in the frivolous imagery of the young spending time, notice how we're weaving this in, matching ribbons in hair. Now I'm not entirely certain whether the word hair comes in that poem, because I just saw it once, so I'll look here again at this. Bosom and head. Okay then. The juxtaposition of bosom and head suggests, just neutral discourse marker there, suggests a balance of a full life, both romantic, with feelings emphasized in the bosom, and scientific and intellectual, with experiences stemming from the head. This notion, this idea, however, is only linked to the trivial appearance and concern of physical appearance in the ribbons. This imagery contrasts painfully with the mundanity of the previous monosyllabic actions of the old woman, and gives credence to the interpretation that this is an envious attack of the young, who should perhaps be spending more time and focus on allowing the old just time for leisure. Okay then. This attack, if it is indeed one, becomes more plaintive as the poem progresses. You see here the last few moments, the final rhyming couplet of old and cold, the last in a line of regular rhymes and rhythm that probably depict, indicate, highlight, evoke, underscore, suggest, reveal the underlying routines and unbroken routines of an Irish peasant, harshly depict the image of our life slowly dying. This image matches the seed of the fire, which leaves the unsympathetic reader with an uneasy idea. As idea is too much. An uneasy notion, idea, concept. The life of the old woman was perhaps unresolved, or still had creative endeavors and experiences left. Since the seed has the purpose of, wordy, but has the purpose of creating life and newness, this image contrasts with the coldness of the final line, to suggest that the old woman regrets a lack of creativity and something else, and leaving something worthwhile in her life. The expected religious ideology of the Irish peasantry in the early 20th century would have supposedly prized the chance to live a life separate that would sacrifice for more later. Does this woman believe in the veracity of that idea? Okay, so there we go. 20 minutes and those images there. So what have I achieved here? So we've got the global idea here in each sentence. And the global idea in the statement in the next sentence weaves in the imagery there. And then we've got the final intensification as we go. We have techniques mentioned: alliteration, pronoun, use of monosyllabic verbs, imagery, juxtaposition, rhyme, rhythm. We have the use of adjectives to describe the techniques, which intensifies how that is to be understood. We have a range of discourse markers, and again adverbs attached to the discourse markers to develop that. We have multiple reader interpretation, and we have some contextual knowledge here that you can only really get if you've got that cultural capital. Okay, so that is this. Now we can stylize some more and read through it as well. So Yeats presents an image of an old lady, both weary and resigned to spending the past moments of her life, oh dear, last moments of her life, domestically caring for the young, presumably with an expectation that the opposite would be more ideal. Again, that's just a really precise idea. The stark alliteration, the fire flickering, depicts her wizened lack of health and vitality, yet with a somewhat mystical quality, as fire eludes passion and life. The perspective of the old lady, I could say of the voice in the poem, is distinctly prioritized by the poem opening with pronoun I. While the poem bemoans a lack of action by the young in looking after the old, it's firmly rooted in one perspective only. Notice how I place that at the end of the sentence to prioritize the idea of home. In contrast to musical language in the fire imagery being more than one, it's not that. The fair repetition of the monosyllabic verbs scrub, bake, sweep, amongst others, evocatively underscores the tedium of the domestic responsibilities that the old woman must feel. Whilst a younger reader might see this as an attack on the idleness of the young, and therefore feel self-defensive, and therefore might adopt a somewhat defensive reading, those with responsibility for others, again the older readers, might be more likely to see this as a defense of the rights of the old to retirement and leisure. This notion of desiring leisure in the old, desiring leisure, okay, notice that we're linking that last paragraph to this one here, is perhaps highlighted in the frivolous imagery of the young spending time matching ribbons to bosom and head. The juxtaposition of bosom and head, okay, again, pick out these parts here, suggests the balance of a full life, both romantic, with feelings emphasized in the bosom, and scientific and intellectual, with experiences stemming from the head. And again, you need a cultural understanding of that division in poetry and ideas. This idea, however, is only linked, conjugation, to the trivial appearance and concern of physical appearance, of physicality in the ribbons. This imagery contrasts painfully with the mundanity of the previously monosyllabic actions of the old woman, and gives credence to the interpretation that this is an envious attack of the young. On the young, who should perhaps be spending more time and focus on allowing the old such time for leisure. This attack, and okay, so we're finally moving into the last paragraph, and notice how we have this attack is helping us with linking to the previous paragraph. If it is indeed one, and again the tentative interpretation, becomes more plaintive, okay, and that means more lacking in confidence and certainly more melancholic. As the poem progresses, final rhyming couplet of old and cold, the last in a line regular rhymes rhythms, that probably reveals the underlying and unbroken routines of an Irish peasant. How she depicts the image of her life slowly dying, being snuffed out maybe. This image matches the seed of the fire, which leaves the unsympathetic reader with an uneasy concept, which leaves any previously unsympathetic readers with an uneasy concept. The life of the old woman was perhaps unresolved, or so our creative endeavours and experience left to be lived. Since the seed has the purpose of creating life and newness, this image contrasts starkly, strongly, intensely, significantly with the coldness of the final line to suggest that the old woman perhaps regrets a lack of creativity and leaving something worthwhile in life. The expected religious ideology of the Irish peasantry in the early 20th century would have supposedly prized the chance to live a life that would sacrifice more for lighter. Sacrifice more for a better afterlife. Does this woman believe in the veracity of that idea? Okay, veracity means truth. So, going through this, we can see that with the speed, I had plenty of typos. We have about 500 words in there. We have alternative interpretations. We have techniques placed in there. It's answering the questions, showing a perspective. There's an argument that's been made there as well. We have some context, and the context is woven into possible readings, rather than saying old people would feel like this in the time of Yeats. And we got some mention of form as well with the overall poem structure, although perhaps that's more implied. Hope you have enjoyed this. Expect more later. Thank you.